The science of food production. The human population depends on a sufficient and sustainable supply of food for its survival. Food security is the ability of human populations to access food of sufficient quality and quantity. Increases in human population and concern for food security leads to a demand for increased food production. Food production must be sustainable and not degrade the natural resources on which agriculture depends. Currently, levels of food production across the world will not meet the projected demand. Multi-crop intensive farming uses lots of fertilizer and pesticides, and this often leads to environmental degradation. A sustainable approach, new methods that do not degrade natural resources, for example land and water supply, and increased plant productivity and manipulation of genetic diversity will play important roles in maintaining sustainable food security. Light from the sun is the source of all energy used by living things and in food chains. Therefore, all food production, plant and animal, ultimately depends on photosynthesis. Humans depend on only a few types of plants to produce 95% of the world's food supply. These are mainly cereal plants, potatoes, roots and legumes. And these are those plants that make up 95% of the world's food supply. Food production depends on factors that control photosynthesis and plant growth. The area to grow crops is limited. Increased food production will depend on factors that control plant growth. Breeding of higher yielding cultivars, use of fertilizers, protecting crops from pests, diseases and competition. Crops are bred with physical characteristics suited to rearing and harvesting, as well as those that can thrive in particular environmental conditions. In any given food chain, in the transfer of energy from one organism to another, about 90% of that energy is lost. Only 10% is passed on to the next organism in the food chain. Those energy losses can be via food not eaten, for example fur, bones, etc., food not digested and passed out as feces, energy used for movement, energy used for heat, and only 10% is available for the next consumer in the food chain. As a result of the energy losses between each trophic level in the food chains are usually quite short. However, shorter food chains are usually more efficient. By shortening the food chain, more energy is available to the final consumer. In this way, a larger population could be supported on a largely vegetarian diet. Livestock produces less food per unit area than crop plants due to the loss of energy between trophic levels. Livestock production is possible in habitats unsuitable for growing crops. And these energy losses in the food chain can be represented by the pyramid of numbers. You find fewer organisms in the food chain with each trophic level due to energy losses.